Hey everybody, Jazz Drum Hang, Chris Smith here, live weekly Q&A, and I don't know, what are you working on? What are you listening to? What's happening? I thought I would start because I have more and more people watching these videos, joining in live, of course, and then watching them after they've been recorded, so I don't want to make the first couple minutes before people start showing up super weird and awkward, so excuse me, speaking of awkward, sorry, album of the day, Ernestine Anderson, Sunshine. Now, I wasn't aware of vocalist Ernestine Anderson for a long time actually, until about 10 years ago. And there's still an album that I need to find that I don't have, and it was the Clayton Hamilton Orchestra featuring Ernestine Anderson, recorded sometime in the, I think in the 2000s. But it, my teacher Jim White in Colorado had it on CD, and I need to find it on eBay because great writing by John Clayton, great drumming obviously by Hammer, and great singing by Ernestine Anderson. So this record features Ray Brown on bass, the great Ray Brown, Jeff Hamilton on drums, and Monty Alexander. That's the rhythm section on piano. And it's super, super swinging. Ernestine Anderson brings that really great feel, the blues, soulful inflection, man, just bringing it. So this I bought for $1. They're giving this shit away. They're giving it away at record stores. All the good stuff, man. You can find so much good stuff for $1 at a record store. This is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites. You got to find it. I believe it's on streaming services and things now, but my favorite track, side 2, track 1, I'm Walking. Swinging. So, let's see. Luis. How you doing, Luis? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping in. So, recently, just this week, one of the drummers in the virtual studio, so the virtual studio at Jazz Drum Hang is where I offer ongoing private instruction. So video exchange lessons, or if you want a private Skype or Zoom lesson. But the video exchange is really, I think, very useful for students. And one of the lessons this week I had with a student, we were talking about learning to get better at sight reading, setting up figures in a big band. And so it made me, something he said that his teacher had him do was to practice just playing setups to figures. And I think it's not necessarily a bad exercise, but it's such an unmusical exercise. Clearly that is not, I don't think that's an exercise coming from a drummer who knows how to play big band drums. It's just coming from an educator doing their best to help a drummer find ways to deal with ensemble figures. But our setups or our playing should be based on the music that's happening. So I don't want to play with a soloist who's just if I'm playing with a soloist who is simply regurgitating some pattern that they practiced, every chord is a certain pattern, and there's no interaction and there's nothing that's relating to the song, it sucks. And if a drummer is playing setups like he's reading out of some method book and everything is a stock fill, it's not good, right? So this made me think about several things. And so Luis is actually just asking while I'm talking about working on sight reading and reading in a professional setting. So let's talk about this first. Of course, there's some episodes on Jazz Drum Hang that talk about really about internalizing big band charts. That's the best way to do it, is memorizing the chart through vocalization, right? But so let's talk a little bit about sight reading. A couple things that I keep in mind when I'm sight reading. First, it's not a video game. It is not, you have to play everything written on the chart. Most of the things written on the chart are ways that you can help you know where you are, right? And then deciphering what figures you want to play, that's kind of the important part. and not having to play every note in every figure. So there may be a 2-measure rhythm, such as, for instance, as an example, I hope it's not backwards, so the first 2 bars of 3 right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, ba 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 boo ba doo ba 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 boo ba doo ba. If we just read the rhythm, da 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 da. A, it doesn't swing. B, it has no articulation, it has no accents, it has no phrasing. C, nobody wants to hear that. It doesn't sound like jazz music, right? So ba ba boo ya ba doo ba ba boo you ba doo ga. So when you're sight reading, hey Benedict, when you're sight reading, one of the things you want to do is vocalize the rhythms while you play them. And start, when you practice, just if you get charts, you have blank charts, or this is Jake Hanna's book, which you can find. But if you're just reading rhythms, you got to be vocalizing the rhythms while you do it, so that when you actually get in a professional setting and you're sight reading on the gig, you're vocalizing them also. You could be even doing it out loud. Nobody can hear you, but you got to be singing those accents, the articulations, the phrasing. Now, something else that I thought about sight reading, speaking to a jazz drum hang member this week, also was about being smart. When you're on a professional gig and you're reading a chart, less is more. Always remember that the groove is the most important thing. Many, many times, like Fridays at Birdland, when I play with the big band every Friday, I have students or friends come and sit in. And the main thing that everybody does, probably, if it doesn't go well, the main thing everybody does is they're staring at the music, they're too wrapped up in the music, and they're not concerned with the groove. And the rest of the band, none of them have any clue what is on your music. They don't have a damn clue what's on your music, but they know if it's slowing down, if it's speeding up, if you're too loud, if the groove isn't centered. So you could make the whole song feel good as long as you start with them and somehow you end with them. The middle, as long as it feels good, the band is going to be happy. So don't get too caught up in the music. Look away from the music. So one of the things that I've done that is very helpful for me is in solo sections. I use the solo section a lot of time. If it's just a simple, like a Basie chart or a 32-bar tune or a blues, the solo section is a good chance for me to look ahead to see what's coming up next. I can hear where I am in the form most of the time unless it's something really weird. I don't need to be staring, watching 12 measures or 32 measures of slashes go by. I'm looking into the chart and I'm reading figures, and a lot of times before backgrounds come in, I'm actually playing the shout chorus figures as comping. So I'm reading the stuff before I have to get to it. So you don't have to sight read it right in the moment. You can actually cheat. You can use some of those rhythms, look ahead, play them as comping phrases. Or if there's backgrounds written in the part, background cues or whatever, like use them the first time as a comping. And then the second time, when they actually come in, you're not sight reading it. You've actually read it once before. So you could hear Mel do this, I'm sure Mel wasn't doing what I just described by reading ahead in the chart necessarily. He knew the chart. So we call it like rhythmic foreshadowing. But I always reference this one, Cohn, Al Cohn. Al Cohn chart nose cone, because Mel plays his comping. He plays what ends up being the saxophone rhythm the second time through the chorus. So the first time through the chorus, you hear Mel playing these rhythms. It's just comping. Second time through, as it turns out, the exact thing that Mel was comping the first time ends up being what the saxophone played the second time. So he's like setting them up for it, and it was just perfect. So like you can do that, reading ahead in the chart, not getting caught up with all of the rhythms. Also, if it's a lot, focus on maybe just the last few notes of a phrase. So ba 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 do ba do ba. If I'm playing, I could play da 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 ba ba do ba. End the phrase with them. You don't have to play the whole phrase with them. How much can you play between your snare drum and your bass drum within those rhythms that helps the band, play them successfully and in time without stopping the sound of your ride cymbal. The second thing I'll say is think not about setting up figures or kicking the band. No, can we just stop? Like there are great drummers who do that, and I get it. But can we think about, and can we rename it comp for the band? Can we comp in a way that supports the band figures or the written material? And if we think about it as comping, I think we're less likely to beat the drums up, play too loud, lose the subdivision. If we just think about comping to set up the figure, keeping the sound of our cymbals involved, I think we'll become much more successful sight readers and players in any size ensemble where there's written music, written arrangement, background, whatever. So one of the things, sight reading, one of the things that I find after listening to a lot of Mel and Jeff Hamilton and John Riley and Dennis McCrell and Andy Watson and all these people I love is using a dotted quarter note and a quarter note, a dotted quarter and a quarter note as our best friend. So a lot of times jazz rhythms come in on the and of one or the and of three. So a simple way to set something up, if the band is coming in on the and of one, 1, 2, 3, and 1. 1, 2, 3, and 1. That's the dotted quarter quarter. 1, 2, 3, and bo-do, 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 be, ba-da, ba-da, ba-do, go-do, be-de-da. I'm just singing something, but that sounds like jazz music. It sounds like something you've heard, right? So the same thing could be on the and of 1 and 3. 1, 1, and 3. Ba, ba, ba-do, be, ba. Ba, ba, ba-do, be, So, a couple ways to do this. Let me swing the camera so y'all can see what's happening. Couple ways to do this that work for me that might work for you. Sorry, I'm gonna get this a little lower. Y'all don't need to see, you don't need to see my face. Nobody wants to see that, man. All right, the drums. Band plays a big hit on beat 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Bop. Yeah? 1, 2, 3, boo, So, I hope that helps a little bit. Think about a couple things. Sight reading. Don't try to read everything. Don't forget the groove. That's the most important part. Maybe just play some of the notes of the rhythms. Looking ahead and use the solo section as a way to practice reading the figures before you actually get there. So let me see. I think I might have missed a couple chats. So Luis, let me know if that helps. We can keep talking about it also. I have more ideas. I always have more ideas. But let me get to Benedict's question, Luis, and then let me know how that answer was if you want to keep talking. Benedict says, I'm really new in playing drums. My band wants me to trade fours with them, but I'm really scared. Any tips to stay in time or to play interesting stuff? Okay, good question. So, your band wants to trade with you. You're apprehensive to do it. first thing would be keep the hi-hat steady. You know, like I just said with the big band, the groove and the time and the feel is really the most important. So you could play the most interesting, fancy 4-measure phrase ever, but if you really speed up or really slow down, or the hi-hat kind of completely drops out, the band isn't going to know where they are, so it's going to not end well, right? So that's the first thing is, I know you don't always have to keep your hi-hat going, but for beginning drummers and beginning jazz drummers who are starting to do more soloing and more trading, the hi-hat is really important for you to keep your time centered and to keep your time steady and in the pocket. And it's really important for the other band members to hear it so they know where you are also. So I would take several phrases, 4-measure phrases, and I would actually shed them and memorize them, such as a horn player would. A horn player isn't, well, hopefully the horn player isn't going to play on a tune and completely guessing how to play a 2-5-1. They've practiced ways to navigate a 2-5-1 over the course of 2 measures so that they plug it into a situation. So you need to have 4 measures of things that you can plug into a situation. So you could take 2 pieces of vocabulary and take 2 pieces of vocabulary and maybe I would maybe actually just write them down, right? So I'll take hand to foot eighth notes and a phrase that says and triplet, whatever, quarter note, and triplet 1, and triplet 3, and triplet 1, and triplet 3, and then I'll take eighth notes between my hand, whether it's my right hand or my left hand, and my bass drum, okay? So let's hear how this sounds. All right, get this a little lower. So the 2 phrases are this. So you could play it alternating sticking, or you could go, I'm playing it this way. Right, left, left, right, left. Big right, left, left, bounce, right, left. And then I played eighth notes between my right hand and my bass drum, and I ended on the and of 4. That's something that you want to get used to doing also, getting out of your phrases on the and of 4, not always playing to beat 1. Both work. Both are not great if you always do it one way, but both are needed. So here's an example of a 4-measure phrase you could practice. Write it down, practice it, then put on a recording. Any recording that you can play well with the tempo, and every other 4 measures, no matter what's going on in the recording, you're simply going to plug that in. So maybe it's forced musicality in a way, but you have to be used to practicing and playing successfully a number of 2-measure and 4-measure fills, plugging them in while you're playing along with the recording so that you can actually do that live with your band. It doesn't matter that you work them out for now, because here's the thing. You're going to play and you're going to mess some up. So you might go 1, 2, 3, 4. I started the idea, I messed the idea up, I didn't let my hi-hat fall away, I just then started playing something that I knew how to play to get me out of the phrase, which ended up being paradiddles. So the more things you have memorized that you can plug in, the better you'll get at messing up and getting out of your phrase. So I hope that helps. Transcribing a lot of great solo phrases. Max Roach is one that's very, very clear with playing melodic and interesting and completely amazing solo phrases. Kenny Clark. Joe Farnsworth is another, Lewis Nash. These drummers play really great phrases that you need to transcribe, steal, borrow, and then through all these things, you will end up finding that you actually play your own things, getting from idea to idea. And that's where the improvisation really comes in. So don't be scared. Keep the time. You can also think about playing, it doesn't always have to be a solo, like solo with both hands. So you could play comping solos, which is absolutely fine. So just practice keeping time with your right hand, your hi-hat on 2 and 4, and what interesting things can you do with your left. So trading fours, thinking of a comping solo is awesome. Not everything has to be snare drum Philly Joe centric. I love it. I do. I love it, but it doesn't always have to be that way. And it might help you, and it might help your bandmates if you sometimes think of your solo phrases as comping phrases. So 4 bars a time, 4 bars a solo. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing wrong with that. And definitely that last one, those quarter note triplets, that's straight Max Roach, right? So that's what I'm talking about. So transcribe, you got to have a bunch of things memorized that you try to plug in. So I think I missed a question. Do I mean Philly Joe's solo book? I meant when I just said Philly Joe, I just mean in the style of Philly Joe, because Philly's so great. And it's really so many of his solo, not all, of course, I'm making a generalization to make a point, but so much of his vocabulary is centered off of and around the snare drum, as opposed to, everybody's is, but he's like probably the most famous, most copied cat, I would have to say, of drummers today. It's like, I love it, right? But some other drummers do other things as far as getting the cymbals involved more, getting the toms involved more, and it's equally as valid. Like, Alan Dawson could obviously play the mess out of the snare drum, right? But he had a different sound than Philly Joe. Everybody has their different way of going about it. And so I'm making a generalization to say that the majority of drummers I hear, that I teach, that I work with, forget that they have anything except a snare drum to play. And it's just, it starts to sound like jazz music with a high school rudimental snare drum competition happening, which is, it's all important, but it's not everything, So taking the rudiments and that snare drum, but voicing it and playing some cymbals every once in a while wouldn't kill anybody. So that's what I meant by that statement. So that book, so Luis mentioned, now I'll hop back to the next question. Luis had mentioned a Philly Joe solo book. There is this massive book that was put out. It's all Philly Joe transcriptions. I find them, as far as I'm concerned, they're really very super accurate. I know John Riley was helpful in sort of proofreading the transcriptions and working with the guy that wrote it. And I have it, a friend actually has it now. But I tell you what, I love the book because you can just open it and find and listen to a recording and find a transcription and maybe take a little bit out of it and check out the stickings. It has the stickings, which is the most important thing. I don't understand transcriptions necessarily without stickings, because while they may not be 100% accurate, and maybe sometimes we don't exactly know the exact sticking a drummer played, right? It's like you still have to deal with the sticking if you want to play the phrase. And the sticking is how the sound is being made. If it's 2 diddles, that's why those 2 notes are soft and fast and even. It's like sticking is everything. So that book is hip because of the sticking, but it doesn't replace actually listening to something so many times that you've transcribed it. The point of transcription is not, as far as I'm concerned, the point of transcription is not the end product of having a solo written down. The end product that you're after is having listened to that solo so many times that you have internalized it. You've had to sing it because you've had to figure out so many you sang it, you know it, you've internalized it, you've figured it out at the drum set, and as a result, you've channeled that feel, you've channeled that sticking, and you can perform some of it, and hopefully some of it then sticks in you and comes out in your playing. That's the whole point, not to. So many people can transcribe a whole lot of shit and never sound good, right? So that book is hip. You can buy it. Steve Maxwell's had it for sale. I bet they still do. Steve Weiss Music, I believe, had it also. So those are the two places I know I've seen it. It's pretty cool. It's very cool. All right, new question. Oh, hey, Hung Shin. Hung Shin is in the virtual studio. He and I are working on a lot of things in video exchange lessons. I want to ask about playing melodies on drums, not only rhythms, but including dynamics, accents, I'll read this question better. Hung Shin asks, he wants to know about playing melodies on drums, not only rhythms, but also including dynamics, ascending and descending lines of melody. How do you approach playing melodies on the drums? So, to answer your question, I approach melodies from. I don't approach melodies as you know how Ari Honig plays the melodies on the drums by bending the pitch. I can't do that. Okay, so I'm not trying to play 8 to 10 different notes out of my drums necessarily. What I try to do is I try to play accurately, as you said, not you said the rhythm, but obviously the rhythm. But if I can sort of take the higher notes and play them on a higher instrument and the lower and play it on a lower instrument, I do that. But what I'm really most concerned with is articulation and being able to play long notes as buzzes and short notes or soft notes. Recreating the articulations is for me the whole, not the whole thing. It's what I try to get the most out of it. So, like if you ever heard Jeff Hamilton, because I know Hung Shin, you like Jeff Hamilton, he'll play Lullaby of the Leaves, do 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 do. It goes up and then it goes down. He's not like hitting the pitches, but it's the feel of the pitches going up and down. So you can do that on the drums. So, I mean, let's think of an example. A good example would be, let's see. I'm having a night in Tunisia. Okay. Boo-doo-doo-doo beep bop. Boo-doo-doo-doo beep bop. Boo-doo-boo-doo beep bop. Boo-doo-boo-doo beep bop. So I'm thinking beep. So this is not, I'm going off on a riff here. So boo-doo-doo, the intro. Boo-doo-boo-doo, highest note. Boo-doo-boo-doo, highest note. Boo-doo-boo-doo, highest note. I'm working with it. So I'm trying to think of where the highest note is in the phrase. The second time through. So the first time through, bo-do-bo-do-dee da bo-do-dee, bo-do-bo-do-dee da bo-da, goes lower the second time. So I'm not playing the notes, but if I go that's an idea. Thinking about it doesn't have to be all rudiments either, you know, but there's certain rudiments. I did an episode where I did Celia, I did certain standards, and it's like figuring out rudiments to properly convey again the articulations of the song. So that's really what when I practice it, that's what I'm worried about. Not pitch, but stickings that help me get the loud notes loud, the accented notes accented, and the other notes, if they're just ghosted, what does that mean for me? Usually that means a simple drop of the stick. No prep, no nothing, just drop the stick. Yeah. I hope that's helpful. I'm not a master of it, but All right. 2 new questions. I appreciate these questions. It's like, you have no idea how stressful this is. Just like, if I don't know something, I'll straight up tell you. Okay, so Luis has a question, and then, oh man, I do not know how to pronounce your name. Erlamoka? I'll get to your question. Sorry if I completely butchered your name, but thanks for the great question. Hang on one second. So the first question is from Luis. Chris, please talk about your personal sticking vocabulary. I mean, my personal sticking vocabulary is really not any different than anybody else's. It's just based on rudiments. The things that I find that I use the most, without a doubt, are right, left sticking. So you could say that's a rub-a-dub or whatever, but right, left, right, left. I use that all the time, whether I'm playing a string of eighth notes or whether I'm playing triplets. Paradiddle diddles, I wear them out, and paradiddles, I wear those out. Also like rudiments. I think the sticking is coming from rudiments, straight up. There's no doubt, because and then what things flow in the jazz realm, what things flow for you. So for me, right, left. Or left, right. Paradiddles. Paradiddle diddles. Rudiments. 7-stroke rolls, 5-stroke rolls. How many things did I mention? So I guess that's it. 5-stroke, 7-stroke, right, left, or rub-a-dub, paradiddles, and paradiddle diddles. Those are the 5 things. Those stickings inform probably 99% of the things I play. And then it's just a matter of masking them with, shading them, I should say, not masking, shading those stickings with accents, non-accented notes, and then different instruments, since we have different drums, different cymbals, all these things. So that's sort of my philosophy on stickings, and what's at least helpful for me. Ernesto. That I can say, Ernesto. Ernesto's question. I was looking forward to this Q&A. Can you give me any advice on transcribing some solos that use rudiments? This is, of course, for a beginner. Okay. Yes. People are going to get sick of me saying it, but there's this one 8-measure transcription of Shelly Manne that I absolutely think is really great. So he plays, basically, it's a rudiments, and he plays 5-stroke roll off the cymbal. And then he plays eighth notes. But the song is called That's What I'm Talking About. No G on talking, and bout is no A. So That's What I'm Talking About. And the song is performed by Shorty Rogers and his Giants, the drummer Shelly Manne. He plays an 8-measure intro into the song. And so it covers the rudiments, it covers 5-stroke roll, as I said, coming off the snare drum and onto the cymbal. I also, one of the things that has really stuck with me rudimentally, talking about Philly Joe Jones, to start with some trading fours. I always liked his fours on No Room for Squares. Anything, let's see, I'm trying to think rudimental. I mean, there's so many. The thing I was going to say was actually like transcribing a lot of Art Taylor, Philly Joe Jones, to hear the rudiments. That Shelly Manne one is great. And then I like to just take, outside of that idea, take a Wilcoxon solo. I like to take the 150 All-American solos. I know everybody does the swinging solos, which are, I mean, those are that's the gold standard, right? Those are great. I like to try to find ways that work, phrases that work with those Wilcoxon American rudimental solos. So it's 150 solos. I believe one of the last phrases is... 5-stroke rolls, and then a 7, something like that. But taking a phrase like that, throwing it into your time playing. Put on any record that's swinging that you have a good time playing along with, and play one of those Wilcoxon phrases. So it would sound something like this. Sometimes it's harder to when you're transcribing Philly Joe. If you're new at jazz, you're transcribing these solos. You're wanting to hear those rudiments, and you will. But sometimes it's harder to pick them out while you're transcribing because transcribing is hard enough. So my point here is start with a rudimental solo, and those 150 Wilcoxon solos are great because they're pretty easy. You can clearly see the rudiments, okay? You can see, and sometimes they're even labeled, right? You can see, it labels what the rudiments are, but you can see the 5-stroke roll, you can see the paradiddle, you can see the rudiments, and then if you play it, practice it on the snare drum, then play it, get used to playing, feeling the triplet and swinging, and then putting these things in usually at straight 16th note or straight 8th notes underneath, as I just did. What that does is it gets your hands performing them. It gets your ears used to the sound of that, which will help when you go transcribe Shelly Manne or Philly Joe or Jimmy Cobb or whatever, right? So I think that's an important step in hearing the rudiments in the master drummers is learning them for yourself, playing them for yourself will help you hear them and transcribe them easier. So I hope that is helpful. Next question. Okay. Next question. How do you work on keeping the form of the song when you're soloing? This is a big one, man. I just did an episode. So how do I work on keeping the form of the song when I'm soloing? Good question. First of all, good question. I think we talk about it here almost every week. So I've done an episode that I will put out. Let me actually... No, I don't. I was going to plug in my computer to play audio. I don't need to, but I have to sing the melody. So keeping the form of the song, the form is based on the melody. And if I can't sing the form, I don't want to solo on the song. I may be forced to, so then it's a matter of, oh, well, I don't know the melody, but I know it's a 32-bar tune, so I'm playing 8-measure phrases. You know, like, but that's not the ideal musical setting, right? And that's not the ideal way we want to be soloing. We want to be soloing on the song. So I keep the form because I can sing the melody, or I can sing, you know, maybe the bass line, or, you know, whatever's going on. So like, for instance, sometimes it's not always the melody. Take a song like Bolivia, okay? A lot of people play Cedar Walton's Bolivia. Boo boo be go doo doo de boo 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 be doo doo go be. No, that's Walking. That's Joshua. Man, I'm like, my brain is like Bolivia. So Bolivia has this bass line, right? That goes on for 16 bars. If I'm soloing, I'm singing that bass line because there's no real melody there. But the melody is, you know, boot it, beat it, boot it, beat it, boot it. Firm Roots is another one where it sort of has this pedal thing happening, right? So you gotta sing whatever it is. Usually it's the melody. Sometimes it could be a rhythmic hit or a vamp or a bass line, but you have to sing it to be able to solo over it. So somebody mention a tune, anybody. Let's see if I can do it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. If you stump me, and if I can't sing the melody, I'm not gonna try to solo over it, so we'll just keep going. Who's got a tune? Somebody's gotta have a tune. Tune. Okay, I'm looking for tunes. In the meantime, Blue Monk. Good. Okay. Hang on. I gotta get my computer. Good. Blue Monk. All right. I know. Sorry, not the most professional. I had to get the computer because this is too difficult, man. I'll play Blue Monk, but just have to hear it for 2 seconds to get it in my brain, you know. Because I'm getting Joshua mixed up with Bolivia. Everything is scrambled in here today. First, Blue Monk. So I'm going to solo on Blue Monk. I'm going to be singing the melody constantly. I'll take a couple choruses. The first several times through, I'll play pretty close to the melody. Maybe I'll even comp and play the melody. And then as I go on, I'll get further away from the melody. Even though I'm still singing it, I'll play more dense, more shit. And then I'll go back to the melody to end it. So I'm thinking of my solo as a miniature song. Melody, solos, melody. All right, let's see what happens here. I'll lower this video so you can see maybe a little better the whole kit. All right, here we go. Blue Monk. All right. So that was me attempting Blue Monk. Yeah, attempting. I mean, if you could hear the melody, then I'm cool with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, boo-bo-doo-dee, boo-bo-doo-dee. That's what I was talking about Hung Shin, where it's like, second time through that melody, it goes higher. So, first time, I have a high, a medium, and a low, and then my bass drum. So I have 4 pitches. How can you match those 4 pitches with the basic shape of the melody? Then, can you play buzzes, taps? How do you make articulations? How do you make long notes, short notes, accented notes? And then I just kind of went into a flow of playing more dense stuff that my hands could play while singing the melody. And I made a conscious decision. Here's another thing. I made a conscious decision when my last chorus was going to be. So this is something about playing over the form of a tune that I don't think I've mentioned that's actually pretty important, is like, you should be aware, as far as I'm concerned, you should probably be aware of what your last chorus is before you're in it. So you're soloing and be like, man, I'm going to take one more. I usually say that in my brain, like, I'm going to take one more, and so that I know what I'm playing. I know where I'm coming from, where I'm going, so that I'm not like thinking, oh shit, I'm at the end of the form, I got to cue the band. If you're worried about it and you're soloing and you don't know that you're ending, the band is like gonna be caught off guard. So like, I was soloing, I was stuck playing like maybe a 6-stroke roll or something. I was like playing something fast, but I was just singing the melody. I was like, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna play the melody, right? So that's like thinking ahead. What is this your last chorus? Know when your last chorus is. And it depends on the tune. But I'm just thinking, like, if you're playing standards at a coffee shop, or you're playing standards at a club, or you're just playing tunes, generally the most exciting, dense, rudimental shit I'm playing, I should stop saying shit, stuff I'm playing is not the last 8 bars, man. It's like the first 16 of my last chorus, or the second to last blues chorus or something, because the last 8 bars, the last 16 bars of my solo is all about clarity, time, and bringing the other musicians in. And it's not about, this is the most exciting point of my solo. We've probably already passed that. There are times when that is the case. Of course there's times when that's the case. But I'm talking about jam session, playing tunes, take a couple choruses on, all the things you are. Do it, make your artistic statement, bring the band back in, all while you're singing the melody. So that's a couple thoughts on that. More questions? Moaning, yeah. Moaning. I'm going to let you listen to Ari do that. I'm not going to attempt that. Yeah, just I try to match pitches as much as I can as far as high, low, medium, and yeah. So I'm gonna play for a second. If anybody has questions, hit them. Keep moving this around. I can't find the right spot today, but it's cool. All right, I'm gonna play for a second. Just get some ideas out. Something I've been messing with is playing 5-stroke rolls, but then putting the single note on either the hi-hat or on the bass drum. So bounce, 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 foot. So for me, I can do it both ways, but right now I'm playing right, right, left, left foot. I will say that when I'm doing this, I'm using my fingers. Like, if I want to play 5-stroke roll on the floor tom, there's one way that I know how to play it clean, and that's with letting the stick bounce and then really using my fingers to get the second one clean. You know, like so. Let me turn this snare off. My fingers are helping me make that sucker clear. You know, I'm letting it bounce, and then I have that finger thing. So but when I'm doing this 5-stroke roll, that's really helping me keep them clear. Now, I think of them as, 30-second note triplets? I don't know what to call that. But yeah, so 2 triplets per 8th note. So 2 triplets, which are the 4... No, I'm saying it wrong. Hang on, I'm saying it wrong. Sorry. I'm thinking of the... So I'm thinking of it like triplet and triplet, triplet, triplet 1 and, triplet 2 and. So that's why I'm thinking of it off my snare drum. Right? So that's been a fun... Yeah. So, I don't know. That's a phrase. Let's see. Did I miss any question from anyone? What's up, Mads? Danish drummers. I hear you. I gotta check it out. Let's see. More questions. Sorry for the delay. Do you think about every note you play, or do you let yourself go? Yeah, I definitely don't. I definitely don't think about every note I play. No. At some point, have I thought about every note in a way? I think, yeah. Like I do. I think. No, I absolutely do not think about every note. Nobody thinks about every note because you've trained your muscles to be able to do things, and things come naturally. But it takes time. It's just like walking. You know, you had to think to walk. right? You had to concentrate very, very hard to learn how to walk, and you had to concentrate to tie your shoe. Now you get up, you tie your shoe, and you can go running, right? So this is the same. You don't have to think about every step. But I would have to say that I've never, how do I say this? I'm kind of a thinker, and I think I think too much. But I will say that I don't just not think. I'm kind of constantly thinking when I'm playing. So there is definitely a flow in my playing. And there are a lot of things that I can play that I don't think about. However, it's not that I've gotten to a point, at least me, now I can't, I'm only speaking about my experience, but at a certain point I had to think about sticking. I had to think right, left, 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 boom. Yeah, and then I could do that. And then it gets replaced with thinking about other things. So the level of maybe playing that I've achieved, I don't have to think as much about every stroke. I definitely don't. What I do think about constantly is what's happening in the music and what's the next step. Like, I'm analyzing the dynamic of the stuff, of the music. It's like, should I play brushes? Should I be playing this cymbal? Am I, like I'm kind of analyzing it, like I'm mixing it, or like I'm listening to an album in real time, like what's going to happen next? Oh, the bass player is going to solo. My brushes aren't out. Like I'm thinking all the time. I'm thinking all the time. The playing is hopefully flowing. And as I've gotten older and as I've gotten to play more, my thinking is less about notes and less about all that stuff, the nuts and bolts. And my thinking has been replaced by so much music. Musical decisions, orchestration decisions. Maybe I'm playing, I'm like, I should turn the snare drum off on the next solo to add a different texture. Or, like what is needed? I'm thinking, you know what? It's stagnant. Why don't I play in 3/4 when I get to the bridge and see what the bass player does? Like I'm thinking all the time about what has happened, what is happening, what should be happening as far as musical decisions, textures, energy, vibe, dynamic. So that's the goal. So I think my point is you never stop thinking. Hopefully you never stop thinking. Hopefully someday when I'm like 80, all these musical things I won't have to think about either. And I can just like, a great example, I know I bring up Mel Lewis all the time, but if you listen to Mel Lewis play those big band charts, Terry Gibbs, anything he recorded ever, but especially the late 50s in LA, he had internalized his ability to play that music and to play the correct articulations to match the ensemble to set. He wasn't thinking about those things. He wasn't having to think, I'm sure, about so many things that that even if we concentrate, we can't do, right? So it's a never-ending thing, I wish we could get in drummers' brains to know what they were thinking and how much they were thinking, if they were. All I know is I think a lot. And it's become less notes and more musical decisions and choices and texture and dynamic and what I need to do next to make the band sound its best. I missed some questions. Here we go. Wow, I missed a lot of questions. Sorry, everybody. I'll not talk as long. Quick questions. Here we go. Okay. Next question. Working on this right now after seeing Peter Erskine do it. Yeah. Organizing your ideas. Talk about timekeeping. Okay, Luis, hang on one second. Let me hit a couple of these other. How do you approach trying to swing with the bass player? I think my ride beat is consistent, but playing with different records, it doesn't feel comfortable or swinging. Well, okay, so let's talk about that. How do you approach trying to swing with the bass player? And I think my ride beat is consistent, but with different records. Well, different records, maybe the time is flux. Playing with records, first of all, putting on a record and playing along with it is really something we all should do all the time. That's how I learned. That's how all of our favorite drummers learned, by putting on a record and playing along with it. Now, you're not in that living, breathing organism, right? I'm going to flip this around over here. Hang on, sorry. You're not in that living, breathing organism of the music that was being made at the time. So you're going to get off. You're going to get off because Your time is breathing, their time is breathing, and it's not always your fault, you know? Art Blakey rushes, Mel Lewis slows down sometimes. It's like, you know, things happen. It's just, it's jazz, it's a vibe, and that's the beautiful part. So, to lock in with the bass player, I think you have to be equal parts consistent and flexible. I think you have to be able to play, as you said, your beat consistently. And more so, I think it's like, can you play consistent quarter notes? And then where does your skip beat lay in those quarter notes? Day, day, ga, day, ga, day, ga, day. You have to be consistent. It's just like walking down the street with somebody. If you tried to walk side by side with another human being walking down the street, and they are consistent with their gait and their step, you can find your step that matches theirs. It doesn't have to be synchronized. You might have shorter legs, they might have longer legs. They might get to the ground a little bit before you, but you can both be doing your own thing in sync. That is from each of those individuals being consistent with their step. But if you walk down the street with a drunk dude who is completely inconsistent in his step, from step to step to step to step, there's no way you can lock in with him. There's no way you could walk down the street, right? It's like, think of it that way. You don't have to be exactly the same. You don't have to look the same. You don't have to, it's not like synchronized swimming. It's just a matter of being able to keep the same pace as if you were walking or running. So playing along with the records, don't get too caught up in it. Think about the consistency of your time, and think about sometimes listening to the bass in a recording is the hardest of all. But I would challenge you to listen to the subdivision in the instrumentalists. Is your cymbal beat lined up with their groove? Put on Kenny Durham, put on Dexter Gordon, put on Milt Jackson has great time. I mean, they all have great time. Milt Jackson has incredible time. Put on records with people playing great time. Oscar Peterson. Does your eighth note, does your cymbal beat jive with theirs? That's, to me, the key. And then playing with real live people, being flexible enough to say, oh, this bass player is maybe feeling the time a little different than you, and as a result, the music is dragging. Or the bass player is feeling it, and it's, why is everything rushing? And you having enough control and consistency in your beat to say, I'm gonna make sure I just play nice quarter notes, and I'm just gonna not let him get me ahead. So I'm just gonna make sure I just subdivide the triplet. Sometimes if it needs to have a little more energy, and your bandmate, your band director, your combo coach, whatever says, it needs to be tipping, get on top of the beat. For me, that means they want to hear more quarter note. I can play my skip beat a little tighter, maybe a little softer, so it's a little more tipping like Jimmy Cobb. That might give them the feel they want. And I'm still playing my beat, but I'm shading it to work in that musical setting. Consistency is the key. Next question. What will you do to make it work if you have to play bebop on a beat-up raggy rock kit? Yeah, okay. Good question, Sam. I wonder if it's Samuel. What do I do to make it work to play bebop on a crappy rock kit? Say at a club, you show up, it's like, then I pull out all my snare drum stuff. I play the toms, maybe not even at all, you know? I get creative with orchestrating, with brushes, with sticks, with turning the snare off and on. I can make any snare drum sound good. Say if I don't have I have a drum key, but say I don't have time to tune the drums or whatever, like I just don't touch the toms. You know, practice playing gigs or practice in your practice space with a cymbal, a snare drum, a hi-hat, and a bass drum. See what you can deal with. If it's a super boomy bass drum, find a towel, tape napkins on it if you have to just control it a little bit so it doesn't sound like, you know, Keith Moon, you know. Tune it up if you can. But it's really about how are the tricks you have between your snare drum and your cymbal. So for instance, I've been playing a lot of gigs with a cymbal and a snare drum lately. and it gets you used to, oh, that's not a good angle at all. Hang on. What tricks? What can you do? I don't know. It's just a matter of, I think, practicing it or doing it enough so that you can deal with it in real time. But I don't touch the toms. Forget it. Snare drum, cymbal, swing, simple, brushes. Now if there's not a coated head on the snare drum, we're screwed. And then I don't know what to do. I got to be honest with you. It's like, man, just play the cymbal beat. Just comp solos and keep the beat. I mean, it's like, if you don't have a coated head on the snare drum, that completely kills all your brushes. So that's tough. There's no doubt about it. Good question. I have time for a couple more. What's my favorite Billy Higgins record? That's a hard one. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's one of my favorites, The Procrastinator. Without a doubt. I have an episode where I talk about that. But I love The Procrastinator, Billy Higgins. I think, a lot of my favorite records and a lot of our favorite records aren't because I'm not saying like that's the greatest record he ever made, but it has a significance to me, right? So that was the first Billy Higgins album. I bought the CD when they put it out on CD in like the late 90s. I bought it. I listen to it so much. So it's like a lot of times my favorite records are just things that have sentimental value to me that I checked out a lot early on, or I listened to with my wife when we were on a honeymoon, or like things that have sentimental value. So, but Lee Morgan, The Procrastinator, man, that's a great record. I mean, one of Billy's best. Okay, one last question that's a big one. Oh, yeah, the VIP trio standards. Yeah, I mean, they're all, like, amazing, right? Like, killing. One final question. It's a big question. I don't know if I have time, but how do you work on brushes? How do I work on brushes? That's a huge question. There's a drum hang episode, actually, that covers the main 3 patterns I use for brushes. I have a ballad pattern that I do certain things with, and then I have sort of a do-all swing pattern that I can play at a bunch of different tempos, and I have an up-tempo pattern. When I practice brushes, sometimes I practice rudiments with brushes. I've done the rudimental ritual, Alan Dawson's rudimental ritual with brushes, which I find very helpful, and I think that everybody should do that with the feet. That's the hard part, folks. The hands is hard, but when you start putting that bossa nova boom, the feet with it, as Alan tells you to do, yeah, that's the come to Jesus moment. So don't forget your feet. Do it with brushes. Try to get your strokes coming horizontally at the snare drum so that you can get long sound. You can get as much brush on the head for as long as possible. You can get brush sound coming away, like either way. So if you're coming into the drum, you get sound and away. Sound in, sound out. I practice brushes by playing a lot with music, in earphones, recording myself, seeing what sounds good, what sounds bad, and what things I can improve on. Is every accent a hard slap? Are some of them softer? Hung Shin and I in our video exchange lessons on drum hang, we've been talking about that a lot. Different accent levels. How can you keep your hands on the snare drum, the brush in contact with the head for as long as possible? You have to record yourself playing brushes along with music. Actually, music that you can't hear. If you have headphones in and you just record yourself and all you can hear is you, awesome, because that's going to tell you exactly what the real deal is, where your deficiencies are. But practicing different tempos, so I'm constantly practicing making sure that I can play every tempo comfortably. There's still a break between my pattern that I use for almost everything and my fast pattern. There's still a part where I can't go to my fast broken pattern yet. I have to stick with pattern number 2, but the faster I go, the crappier my left hand sounds. So I'm working on that. So those are a couple ideas. So we are out of time. I'm out of time at least. But every Thursday, I'm here. And I'm here every Thursday. This video then stays on YouTube. It also goes to Jazz Drum Hang, where if you're not at Jazz Drum Hang, you're missing out. It's super happening. New videos every week. The virtual studio, where a lot of you are always hanging out. So the virtual studio is where we do video exchange lessons. So you send me videos of you hung shin, practicing, doing things, and then I send you feedback back, and we really can hit a lot of things for months, years, however long you want to go. So thanks for checking out Jazz Drum Hang. Thank you for the people that are already in virtual studio, and for those of you that aren't, I hope to see you there. But I hope this is helpful. Every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, New York time, which is where I am, and I hope everybody stays safe and positive and keeps practicing hard and working on getting better and becoming a better musician. So take care. I'll see you all soon. Later.